It's all covered in today's China Truths.
After the storm, terror begins. China's homes are falling apart. The terrifying truth of Tofu drag buildings. When the rainy season arrives, they didn't just flood streets, they drowned a decade-long illusion. Towering buildings began to buckle. Walls cracked open like eggshells. Homes turned into traps. In city after city across China, the truth was ripped bare. Behind the glossy skyline was a ticking time bomb made of cheap cement, fake steel, and systemic corruption. For years, China's real estate boom was sold as a miracle, proof of unstoppable progress. Cities mushroomed overnight, GDP soared, skyscrapers rose faster than anyone could count. But behind the speed and scale was a silent epidemic of shortcuts. Officials hungry for promotions teamed up with developers chasing quick profits. Corners were cut, safety was skipped, inspectors were paid to stay blind. And so, tofu dreg buildings were born, structures so weak they crumbled like wet tofu. The term, made infamous after the 2008 Sichuan earthquake, has become a grim label for a national disgrace. These weren't accidents, they were the product of a broken system. Across second- and third-tier cities, hospitals, schools, and apartment blocks were built with rotting rebar, sand-filled concrete, and foundations barely anchored to the earth. Even as complaints piled up, the machine kept running. Developers got rich, bureaucrats got promoted, and families moved into death traps disguised as homes. People ignored the early warnings: walls that cracked weeks after move-in, ceilings that leaked, balconies that shook in the wind. Many had no choice but to believe in the illusion. But in 2025, nature came knocking, and the illusion shattered. This year's brutal monsoon season has exposed the truth with terrifying clarity. Buildings are falling not because of the rain, but because they were never built to stand. What used to be whispered warnings are now screams of collapse. What was once brushed aside as normal wear and tear is now national disaster. China isn't facing a weather crisis. It's facing the collapse of a lie built brick by brick for over a decade. From rain to ruin, China's buildings are collapsing. What started as heavy rain is now a full-blown national emergency. But this disaster wasn't born in the clouds. It was built from the ground up, brick by corrupted brick. July 2025. Torrential downpours sweep across southern and central China. But it's not just the streets that are underwater. The truth is, too. In city after city, the rainfall didn't just expose leaks. It tore through the lies of rushed construction, cut corners, and fake stability. In Jiangxia, a 12-story apartment building split in half after 5 straight days of rain. First came the cracks, then the collapse. Half the structure folded like paper. Rubble filled the streets. Miraculously, no deaths. But hundreds now have no home. In Hunan, the roof of an elementary school, built only 8 years ago, gave way in the middle of class. Rain poured in. Parents had long complained about mold and rust. Now, they want answers. The foundation, officials admit, was compromised by missing reinforcements and failed waterproofing. Sichuan. Residents watch in horror as their walls begin to sweat, moisture leaking from within the concrete itself. Tiles are falling, balconies are bending, entire buildings have been declared unsafe. And the list is growing. Social media is exploding. Videos of tiles popping under pressure, staircases shifting, walls splitting in real time, spreading faster than the sensors can delete. In Guangdong, a man chained himself to his front door, screaming, "I worked 20 years to buy this house. Where do you want me to go now?" And in poorer towns, no inspections, no answers, just silence. Local officials label the disasters as localized structural incidents. State media is quiet. The message is clear: don't panic and don't ask questions. But behind closed doors, panic is real. A leaked government document from Guangxi warns over 2,000 buildings built between 2011 and 2019 could fail after flooding. That's just one municipality. There could be tens of thousands more. What the storms have revealed isn't just bad construction, It's a broken system. Years of bribery, GDP chasing, and silencing critics have led to this. Now the consequences are crashing down, literally. This isn't just about rain, it's about betrayal. Families believed they bought homes. What they got were ticking time bombs. Would you pour your entire life savings into a home like this? Most people wouldn't. Yet that's the heartbreaking reality for many in mainland China. Why China's buildings are falling apart. 3 explosive reasons behind the crisis. What's causing towers to split in half, schools to cave in, and families to flee their own homes in fear? It's not just the rain. It's a crisis built over years, brick by brick, with 3 deadly ingredients. 1. Speed over safety. China's race to build has turned deadly. For years, China sprinted toward growth, measuring success in square meters and GDP numbers. Local governments rushed to approve mega-projects, developers scrambled to build them fast, and no one stopped to ask, are these buildings safe? They weren't. Inspections were reduced to rubber stamps, engineering checks became afterthoughts, and in second- and third-tier cities, entire neighborhoods were constructed in just months using cheap cement, weak steel, and non-existent waterproofing. From the outside, they looked like symbols of progress. Inside, they were time bombs. Now, under the weight of relentless rain, these hidden flaws are exploding into view. 2. Tofu dreg. Construction. The rot runs deep. Tofu dreg isn't just a meme. It's the nickname for buildings so fragile they crumble like wet tofu. The problem? A web of corruption and greed. Officials and developers cut shady deals. Contracts were handed out without proper bidding. Subcontractors stacked layer upon layer, gutted safety standards to chase profit. The result? Schools, homes, and hospitals that were once praised are now falling apart. And when disaster strikes, no one takes the blame. With so many shadowy players involved, accountability disappears. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens are left living in concrete death traps, paying for their own destruction. 3. Truth suppressed. No oversight, no justice. In a healthy system, disasters spark investigations. In China, they spark censorship. When a residential tower partially collapsed in Xi'an, local media was blocked, videos deleted, and the official story blamed the weather, not the walls. Inspectors who raise concerns are silenced. Whistleblowers risk prison. And state-run media? It's as if the collapse never happened. Without truth, there's no reform. Without reform, the cycle continues. People are dying, not just from bad construction, but from a system that hides it. What's left behind? Fear, homelessness, and broken trust. This isn't just a structural crisis. It's a human one. In cities like Jiangxia, Xi'an, and Sichuan, families are pitching tents outside their own homes, too terrified to sleep under their own roofs. Elderly couples cling to each other in stairwells. Parents keep their children away from balconies that might give way at any moment. The dream of homeownership has become a waking nightmare. Many families are still paying off mortgages for apartments they can no longer live in. Banks refuse to freeze payments. The government offers no help. And so people are forced to choose, stay in a collapsing home or flee with nothing. Makeshift camps are now popping up on the edges of cities, scenes that look like natural disaster zones. But this isn't nature's wrath. This is man-made. This is the cost of ignoring truth, cutting corners, and building on lies. The collapse has begun, and it's bigger than any storm. This crisis isn't just a fluke. It's not bad luck. It's the product of a broken system, one that chose speed over safety, silence over transparency, and propaganda over protection. And now, as the rain falls harder, China's concrete empire is cracking wide open. The collapse you can't see, China's silent psychological crisis. While buildings crumble in the open, a quieter collapse is unfolding in private, inside people's minds. Behind every cracked wall and evacuated home, there's another kind of damage taking root: fear, trauma, and a slow, devastating unraveling of trust. Psychologists and grassroots aid groups are sounding the alarm. Anxiety, depression, even PTSD-like symptoms are on the rise in affected cities. Children wake up screaming from night terrors. They refuse to sleep alone. Parents describe the feeling as being haunted, not by ghosts, but by betrayal. No sirens warn of this crisis. No government report admits it's happening. When officials downplay the emotional toll, they send a chilling message to victims. That silence cuts deeper than any falling beam. It tells people they're alone, and worse, that their suffering is inconvenient. Losing faith. The real cracks are in the social contract. For decades, China's unwritten deal was clear. Stay silent. Get stability. Trade your voice for security. But what happens when even that security crumbles? From collapsed buildings to frozen bank accounts, scandals are stacking up, and people are starting to question everything. Comments on Chinese forums say it all. Even our homes are fake. If the walls fall, will the system fall with them? Even the loyal and patriotic are growing cynical. The promise is breaking, and so is the trust. A nation pulling apart. In disaster zones, a chilling pattern is emerging. People stop organizing. They stop complaining. They stop helping each other. Why? Because they no longer trust anyone. Not the government, not the developers, not even their neighbors. What's replacing cooperation is survivalism, fear, isolation. And when people believe they're truly on their own, they stop reporting cracks. They stop calling for help. Future disasters won't just be worse. They'll be invisible until it's too late. This isn't just a construction crisis, it's a collapse of belief. The visible damage, shattered windows, collapsed ceilings, buildings split in two, is just the surface. The deeper collapse is emotional, social, psychological. Belief in safety is cracking. Belief in fairness is eroding. Belief in the future is vanishing. China may still be building upward, but inward, everything is breaking. Nearly 90 million empty homes in China, cracked foundations, nation on edge, China's real estate nightmare. Once a symbol of China's unstoppable rise, its soaring glass towers now stand deserted, some cracking, some collapsing. Entire districts lie silent, abandoned before a single family ever moved in. Many of these buildings, though never occupied, already show signs of decay. Walls and ceilings crumbling, balconies flaking like foam, and structural cracks running deep. Their quality mirrors that of notorious Tofu dreg projects, built fast and cheap, destined to fail. The dream of home ownership has curdled into fear. What's behind the quiet implosion of China's property empire? Just a decade ago, China's real estate market was praised as the engine powering national prosperity. Tower cranes danced non-stop across skylines from Guangzhou to Chengdu. Real estate accounted for nearly 30% of China's entire GDP. Buying a home wasn't just about having a roof, it was the path to wealth, marriage, and social standing. Entire cities rose from the ground, fueled by blind optimism and endless credit. Developers like Evergrande, Country Garden, and Sunak promised dream lifestyles, luxury towers, massive compounds, and bullet train convenience. Pre-sales exploded. Apartments were snapped up before a single brick was laid. Local governments, addicted to GDP growth, auctioned off land at sky-high prices and borrowed recklessly to fund urban sprawl. But beneath the shimmering glass and steel, a fatal flaw hid in plain sight. The entire boom was built on a mountain of debt, massive, unsustainable debt. Most developers were drowning in leverage, borrowing billions in a desperate race for expansion. Local banks fueled the fire, handing out easy credit to builders and homebuyers alike. Governments paved roads and dug subway lines based on tax revenue projections from residents who never came. By 2020, China had built far more homes than anyone needed. Urban homeownership already topped 90%, while millions of new units sat vacant. Yet the building frenzy continued, driven by political pressure to hit GDP targets at all costs. Ghost cities began to rise, entire urban zones with no people, no businesses, and no future. Then, the tightening began. In 2021, Beijing launched its Three Red Lines policy, slamming the brakes on runaway debt. Credit vanished. Developers started defaulting. Construction froze. Homebuyers who had paid up front were left staring at skeletal concrete shells. What once was the great Chinese housing dream had now twisted into a nightmare haunting the entire nation. Now, in 2025, the effects are visible to all. Half-built towers rust in the rain. Luxury complexes are overrun with weeds. And in many areas, housing prices have collapsed. China's property empire, once the envy of the developing world, is cracking, literally and figuratively. As of mid-2025, the collapse of China's property sector is no longer a hidden crisis. It is unfolding in plain sight and growing more severe by the day. In major cities like Tianjin, Zhengzhou, and even Shanghai's distant districts, the skyline tells a chilling story. Empty skyscrapers with broken windows, steel rebars jutting from unfinished rooftops, cracked foundations dangerously exposed to the elements. Construction sites once brimming with activity now lie abandoned. No workers, no machinery, only silence and scaffolding rusting in the rain. Across social media, citizens are posting videos of buildings swaying in the wind, tiles falling off facades, and water leaking through ceilings just months after purchase. Hashtags like #Tofu projects and #ghost buildings are trending again. In several cities, emergency teams have been dispatched to seal off structurally unsound high-rises that were supposed to house thousands of families. The most alarming trend is that many of these buildings were completed, sold, and legally inhabited, yet are now being deemed unsafe. In Nanning, a luxury development named Jin Namei Century Plaza made headlines when its entire podium parking structure collapsed after days of rainfall. Engineers later revealed the developer had cut corners during construction, using substandard materials and skipping foundation reinforcements to save costs. Over 300 families have now been evacuated, with no compensation in sight. In Xi'an, a cluster of apartment towers developed by a mid-tier firm were found to be sinking unevenly, creating cracks that run through living room walls and threaten structural failure. The developer has disappeared. Residents still paying mortgages are now forced to live in buildings that might not survive the next flood season. Meanwhile, in Guangzhou's Huadu district, a sprawling complex with over 2,000 units sits completely empty. Residents who bought units in 2021 never received keys. The project stopped construction in late 2022 when the developer defaulted, and the site is now overrun by weeds and vermin. Calls to the sales office go unanswered. Local government officials refuse to take responsibility, claiming it's a commercial matter. At the heart of the crisis is a growing wave of public protest. Thousands of homebuyers across at least 15 provinces are now refusing to repay mortgages on unfinished homes. These mortgage boycotts, which began in 2022, are surging again as more families realize their homes will never be delivered. In some cases, residents have begun physically occupying sales offices or staging sit-ins at local government buildings, demanding either full refunds or government intervention. In response, authorities are tightening censorship and increasing security around known protest areas. Several prominent whistleblowers and activists have been detained for spreading rumors about building collapses. Some cities have even deployed drones to monitor public gatherings near abandoned construction sites. The economic impact is also spiraling. Local governments already saddled with debt are seeing sharp declines in land sales, historically their biggest source of revenue. With land demand plummeting and developers unable to bid, municipal budgets are shrinking. Services like public transport, sanitation, and even teacher salaries are being slashed. The ripple effects of the property implosion are now bleeding into healthcare, education, and small business survival. What was once a real estate slowdown has morphed into a nationwide urban paralysis. Apartment prices are in freefall in second- and third-tier cities. Some homeowners have seen their property value drop by over 40%, leaving them trapped in negative equity. Rental prices are falling too, with many landlords forced to lease at a loss just to maintain occupancy. And then there is the psychological cost. What happens when the cornerstone of middle-class wealth, real estate, no longer guarantees safety or stability? In China's current urban landscape, a once-starred future of prosperity is now paved with abandoned towers, collapsing balconies, and unanswered calls to developers who no longer exist. Why it happened. 3 shocking causes behind the crisis. The pre-sale model that backfired. At the heart of China's real estate collapse is the pre-sale housing model, a system where developers finance construction using down payments from buyers before buildings are completed. This model fueled China's property boom for 2 decades. It allowed rapid expansion without heavy upfront capital. Developers could start new projects using money collected from current buyers, essentially operating like a Ponzi scheme. But as soon as confidence dropped, the cycle broke. When developers like Evergrande, Kaisa, and Sunac defaulted on debts, thousands of projects halted midway. Buyers were left with mortgages but no homes. The banking system, heavily exposed to property loans, tightened credit. Other developers soon lost access to new funding. Without fresh capital, even solvent firms struggled to finish ongoing projects. Worse, many developers had used the same plot of land as collateral for multiple loans, a practice quietly tolerated for years. Once defaults began, collateral values crashed, and even completed buildings became toxic assets. The collapse of trust in pre-sales destroyed consumer confidence, sparking mortgage boycotts and fueling a vicious cycle. No new buyers, no funding, no construction, no delivery.
Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We will keep reporting on the COVID surge in China, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to get the latest videos. And thank you for tuning in.